them being what's best for the people, right? So is it better to develop urban areas and or improve them, or reverse urbanization, right? So some proposition comes to the debate, and they say that we should better rural areas because obviously they're neglected, right? And obviously they are bright minds, they can come to rural areas and develop their place and so forth and so forth, right? They bring some policies to the debate, right? Whereas us as an opposition come with a solution and say, okay, an alternative actually, and say, okay, instead of doing that, let us better urban areas because let's think about the strain that the government is going to have, which they constantly ignore, right? Because now they're going to have a lot of things to tend to, right? And let's bear in mind, the government has a lot of things to do, right? Not only do they integrate with their citizens, right, in these what you call urban areas, right? But then they also offer things like social grants and so forth, right? So imagine the constraint that they already have. They won't be able to supply the services that they need to supply to their citizens, right? With the little that they have. And also, what we also noticed is that should these policies be implemented, right? So that proposition comes to the debate, and they say that these policies include housing, forgetting other issues like education, health, and so forth, right? That are lacking in rural areas, you see. So, and us as an opposition comes to the debate, and we tell them that their policies are not fully practical, because there are other things, there are a lot of loopholes, right? Because not only do we need housing and all of these other things, right? But we need other services, right? And the government, as we've already said before, is failing to deliver services already in urban areas, right? So we are saying that instead, let us develop these urban areas, right? So that even if people move, right, these urban areas are still going to be able to people are going to still be able to reside in these urban areas and live a peaceful life, basically, right? Therefore, their points forth that due to they're only providing reasons that will fade soon and solutions that are not really practical. And with that, we as an opposition are proud to oppose the motion. Thank you.
The government cannot provide for urban areas already, is what they say. What guarantee do they have that they will then solve the problems within government? I think that problems are best solved from their root causes. We do not then recognize or actually not refuse that urban areas already exist with problems and that they can be solved within. But the only reason as to why we need reverse urbanization to solve problems from their root causes is that we think that at the end of the day, the only cause of problems within urban areas is the underdevelopment in rural areas. That when there is no education in rural areas, we continue to have unqualified people who move into towns looking for jobs. And at the end of the day, because they don't get the jobs, they continue to develop slums, they continue to develop a lot of insecurities because they are thieves, because they are not actually having jobs at the end of the day. Which they recognize that happens at the end of the day, and they tell us that the only way to solve it is to continue investing in urban areas. But remember and notice that when you invest in urban areas, while you ignore the rural areas, what then happens is that more people are going to be moving from rural areas to continue looking for jobs, but within existing root causes of the problem continue to exist because they do not have proper education at the end of the day, because we ignored them from rural areas at the end of the day. Pardon, we think that they look at our policies, they just in terms of an example as tax incentives. Yet the big picture looks at rural economy development in terms of education, healthcare, infrastructure, connectivity of internet and stuff like that, investment in agriculture, which they then go ahead and ignore and actually continue to focus on only one thing, which is tax incentive. But even tax incentive, which they actually basically focus on, we think that is important because, look, government is already straining, like you say, and has to support people and provide economies that need to grow. If then someone is able to go and invest in agriculture and employ more people who are actually not having jobs, why then shouldn't government that is unable to provide those jobs then give tax incentives to such a person so that he is able to provide more jobs at the end of the day? But also, the government tells us in the first place, which we think think that then causes a whole loophole in their case and a lot of contradiction. That look, urbanization is not a significant problem and reverse urbanization is not a viable solution. What then are you trying to solve by investing in urbanization? When in the first speech you recognize that is not actually a significant problem at the end of the day from their first speaker. But then they come and talk about villages being poor in terms of living standards, like sanitation, economy, they have no water, no dumping areas. We think that this is not a problem and recognize in our first speech and characterization that this exists and recognize that it needs to be solved. They continue to tell us that look, we don't need to solve such problems because government has no money. But we think that look, panel, the motion already focuses on the entirety saying that this house would adopt policies. That means that it presumes feasibility of governments having the money at the end of the day. So that means that the motion tells us that if government has money, do you think that it would be a good thing to adopt such policies? But even if we take it in their best case scenario, that then government does not have money, we think that it would not be practical for government to continue investing in urban areas with its little economies, yet problems are going to continue existing. Look, when you increase space for urban areas in terms of improving infrastructure, but ignoring the people in the villages, they are continuing to come into these areas so that they continue to fill them up, but with their poor education, with their unqualification, with their poor sanitation at the end of the day, that means that these people are coming into urban areas looking for more and more opportunities, which you do not have, and you have low economies. So that means that at the end of the day, you are just exacerbating the problem, but not actually solving the problem. What we think that as Team Affirmative, we focus on the policies that promote reverse urbanization. And our clarification, our characterization and contextualization clearly shows you why urbanization trend exists in the first place, and that we think that the measure of hope represents is simply increasing the trend of urbanization at the end of the day. We tell you that the reason that's why you want reverse urbanization is that urbanization is a problem at hand. It ignores development of urban areas because people are destroying the environment, but also people are struggling, but also it ignores the rural areas. And we think that largely, when you continue to promote what hope brings on the table, you just simply continue to increase the trend of urbanization and don't solve the problem. And we are proud to propose this motion.
Okay, I also like to thank you. Before I continue, do you guys want to hear the call first, or do you want to hear it at the end?
Call first.
Okay. We gave it to side proposition. Cool. We gave it on the following basis, right? The first clash was that it was basically urban areas should be equal to rural areas, right? Proposition came in and told us, okay, cool, we want to actually make rural areas as maybe as equal as this urban area should be. Meaning we put policies in place that basically try and promote the well-being and sustainability within these rural areas, right? This was the first clash from side proposition, right? The way side opposition countered that, they said that we want to only improve basically the life within urban areas, which doesn't necessarily cater for people within urban areas because government is mandated to actually cater for both or everyone within society. So on the fairness check within that clash, we gave it to side proposition, right? Secondly, it was the funds clash, right? The government has funds, and the motion already assumes feasibility that the government has funds to both supply for rural areas and urban areas, right? So basically, side opposition came here and said that the government doesn't necessarily have the funds to actually cater for the rural areas. Hence, we think they should cater only for urban areas and actually raise infrastructure and only maybe medical facilities and malls within urban areas only, whilst necessarily leaving out people within the urban areas. This does not necessarily help anyone because people can die from lack of infrastructure and lack of medical facilities. So that clash we gave to side proposition, right? Thirdly, it was the preservation of culture, right? That clash was given to side proposition on the basis of the fact that people from rural areas can actually preserve or actually keep their sense of culture if they stay in it. And the way we do that is by actually removing all the money that is in the urban areas and putting it into rural areas by maybe building more facilities and developing the facilities there and bringing all the things that are in urban areas to rural areas to try and actually equalize both worlds. So basically their chat was that urban areas should be equal to rural areas, right? Cool. The fourth chat was unemployment. The unemployment chat saying that, unemployment and education chat, right? Saying that we will create, like basically from both houses, we're trying to create employment on both urban areas and rural areas, but side proposition caters for both urban and rural, saying that people from the rural areas don't necessarily have to run from where they are to try and get jobs all the way to Goli because so it doesn't necessarily make sense. We gave that chat to side proposition. The fifth chat and the final chat was the chat of overpopulation vs decentralization, right? Both teams basically tried to actually cater for the overpopularized areas within these urban areas, and the way side proposition did that is by saying that instead of people necessarily running away from rural areas, they can stay where they are, right, and actually make something of themselves within there, whilst also people from the urban areas can move from the urban areas all the way to the rural areas to try and actually contribute to economic growth and financial growth and everything within that sector, right? On side opposition, the decentralization chat isn't necessarily viewed on or isn't necessarily engaged on, in the sense that we have a big city with a lot of people, and instead of trying to minus the amount of people within that city, we just create more malls and create more centers and create more places for people to go to, people from the rural areas to come this side and try and make a living for themselves. So basically, all in all, boils down to who best catered for citizens entirely, and the people that did that, or the side that did that to the best of their ability was side proposition. If you guys have need any feedback, you can come to me or my panelists. Yeah.
Thank you.